Welcome back. Welcome back. I know Ashley's going to make fun of the same intro for every single episode, but yes,
Can you
we're
believe
going.
it?
Can you believe it? We're back. Anyway, welcome back, folks, to the Talentless podcast. If you've missed the episode, we've had some great ones in the last couple, so please check them out. But also, we're having an awesome one today. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership and development and women of color and all the things Ashley and I love to dive into. And our guest today is someone who doesn't just talk about leadership. She writes a book. She builds the damn ladders for people. She's awesome. So, as usual, I'm going to read the bio, but we're joined by Felicia Smith, co-founder and founder and board chair of The Climb, a nonprofit focused on advancing women of color into leadership through mentorship, coaching, and real development, not performative programming. Felicia is a senior executive with more than 17 years of experience leading global workforce and enterprise operations. You should hear her real job. She's a strategist, a coach, and someone who believes leadership isn't about waiting for permission. It's about building better tables so more people can actually lead. And full transparency, everyone, I'm an executive champion of Felicia's organization, The Climb, and the work that we do there is
Wow.
absolutely fantastic. So if you don't know it, check it out. But Felicia, welcome to town.
Thank you guys so much for this invite. I'm excited to be on the Talentless podcast. I've been waiting. And so I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Well, the energy is real. So,
Say more.
so the topic, I think, is kind of what I said, but really it's how leadership actually looks like when we move from just the buzzwords that we say every day to actually creating real structure, real decision making, real power structures, all of those things. Because I think companies love to say that they do this work, or maybe they don't anymore. Maybe they don't even care. But even when they do, I don't think that they're always building the table. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. And leadership readiness as well is going to be part of this conversation. So I want to start, Felicia, by asking you what pushed you to create The Climb? Was there a specific moment that occurred for you?
Yeah, I was the moment the whole time.
Ooh, I love that answer. I
It
was
was
the moment the
I
whole
was the moment.
time.
Yeah, that's the truth, Ashley. I spent a lot of time trying to figure it all out. As I was reflecting last week, I'm a first generation college student. My parents, didn't work in corporate spaces. They didn't work in these new spaces. So when I got there was so much I just didn't know. Right. And I was just trying to figure out and navigate, made some mistakes, luckily not mistakes that landed me not employable, but made mistakes that I just really wish I had someone to tell me how to navigate. And so I had a couple of mentors. To be honest, I really wanted a mentor that looked like me. I had a very hard time finding one because I felt like there was some nuance that I was navigating that it just didn't happen. So I made my way through my career. I found some really great white male mentors who helped me out. But when I got to senior leadership, so many women of color came to see me and they were all asking the same questions. Like, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? How do I have these difficult conversations? What do I do in terms of promotion? And I'm only one person. And I really felt like, why aren't we having these conversations in larger format? Why aren't we talking to each other in community? Because, regardless to what industry, there are some things about the workspace that is the same no matter what. And so how do I create a venue where we're able to do it together and we don't feel like we're all just kind of alone trying to navigate in the dark and hoping we don't run into the wall? And so when I got to senior leadership, I'm like, hey, I really want to create The Climb to help. And I want to tell them all the things that I wish someone would have told me. I want us to share all the lessons and not just me, women like yourself and Desiree who have lessons. Like you guys have been through things that you have to share. And I think it's very powerful when we're together and we were able to come together and share. And so that's what The Climb was built on, was community. And then community and understanding, yes, you're going to get to the table, but then what do you do when you get there? What does it mean to navigate some of these institutions? And so that's where The Climb started. That's why I founded it, because it was all about what I really wanted and didn't have. And I wanted to create that for the next generation that's coming behind me.
I'm a little curious about how you decided on the structure. I know the structure, right? But, how did you decide on how this was all going to work? Were you like, how did you decide? I'm just super curious.
Oh my gosh. So we were founded, the nonprofit was founded in 20 like December of 2022, got incorporated in January, and spent a whole year kind of like doing research, trying to figure out what are the areas that people really need, what's going to be the most effective. Okay, I probably, to your point, I'm not going to be able to have a mentor for every single woman who joins, but how do we create programs where they get access to it? There's women like yourself, Desiree, who want to really help. So, how do I access those women? So, we decided the structure just based on the research and what we knew we could kind of scale and build. And so, we started with executive champions because I really, again, wanted to build around women who were like myself, who wanted to share and give back. That's the starting point. And then, how do we create some programs that really speak to the moment? Like, what are we dealing with right now? And that's just kind of the way we structured it based on the research and the time.
I love this, and I'm gonna tell you several different reasons why, actually, if that's okay. One of them is just right off the bat, such a resource that is needed in general for whenever it comes to leadership for individuals on their path, but also just like in a business. Like there are so many things, like whenever the Crown Act happened and all these other, like no one knew what to do, and it was so evident. And
Yeah.
it was just like, we need a thought, because it was, again, spaghetti thrown to the wall, just made a mess of things to where it was like, I wish we would have had a guy. I wish we would have had a person that's in this scenario that has worked their way in leadership, which we do have, but it was just, how do we locate them? How do we harness them? How do we get them in these positions where they can do this so they can nurture that community? Because to date, it wasn't happening. And that's just a small example of whenever I've seen where I myself is like, where is the group? Where are they?
Where's the community?
Yeah, where like no one was founded in the community like
Yeah.
they should have been. We didn't have those roots planted, and that was an evident thing on the business side, but also, how can we as business individuals, once we've identified that, hey, we have this community in our employment body, but we're not seeing it in leadership. We're not seeing it echoed whenever we're creating policy or putting on these different things or anything like that. And so with the climb that you have, I know it's for individuals. Do y'all ever get people that are just business folks that really don't maybe understand a lot about business that like reach out and are just like, "Hey, can we actually learn more just from y'all?" Or like, how does that portion work? I will say, I don't know if that is a portion. I might be
I
making it up.
wish it is not right now, but I will tell you the group that's still very much interested in the climb are entrepreneurs also. And that's
Mm,
because we saw, the great resignation. A lot of people left the sector, but the
yeah.
principles still apply. Like to your point, even if you're going into business, understanding how the table works, understanding emotional intelligence, understanding all the facets still count. And so what I don't find is a lot of businesses, but a lot of entrepreneurs still want to understand number one, what does the transition look like? What are the
Mm,
applicable skills? And how do I still navigate these new spaces? Because then it's still another new space. Same kind of type of people, right? Just a new
yeah.
space.
Yeah. Differences because I have this conversation all the time. This is just not about women of color. This is just in general. I think that most leaders are not prepared for leadership. So what do
Candidly,
you
yeah.
think the difference is in like being invited into leadership versus being prepared for leadership? I know that's a
Oh,
tough question.
that's such a good question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know it's a tough
fun.
question. And then to add to that and feeling supported once you're there, what does that actually mean? Like that's a lot, right? Right in that sentence. What do you think that means, Felicia?
Yeah. So honestly, I think a lot of people are invited, but they're invited for the wrong reason. They're invited
Mm,
because they're amazing individual contributor, they're producers, they're making the money, they're, meeting all the milestones. And so they're like, oh, if you can do this by yourself, imagine what you can do with a team. And that's a completely different dynamic, right? The
mm-hmm.
ability for me alone to be able to succeed is a whole different thing than now I have to lead 5, 10, 20, 25 people and really give them the tools they need to be successful because now it's no longer about me, it's all about them and motivating them to get to the goal. And so we're invited to the table on the wrong premise. The premise is if I'm good at this thing, I'll be good at this thing. And that's not true. But if
Mm,
I was really invited because I thought, you know what, Desiree is going to be an amazing leader, before I even invite her into leadership, I give her just one on one leadership. training, right? What it means to lead, leading teams. What does conflict look like? How do you have individual performance discussions? I'm then setting a foundation for then when you get into this new job and you're leading 20 people, you understand just the basics. And so I think oftentimes the invitation comes from a place of you're doing good doing this thing and the skills are going to be transferable and they're completely different skills. and so and so the invitation's shallow because you didn't really prepare me. You just threw me into something in hopes that I was going to be successful. So if you're going to invite me to a space to change the way that I operate, then you should at least give me the basic fundamentals. And then as I'm in that position, what I often find is, leaders are flailing and no one's willing to tell them the truth about it. Right. So they're not leading the team well. They're used to just doing the work. So they're in a corner. Their team doesn't know what to do, or they don't know what it is to talk to people. And no one says, hey, let me get you some more help. Let me get you some more training. Let me get you a coach, something to continue to develop you. No. They just say, well, is the person still meeting their quotas? I will just let her go. Or, we'll find something else, something that's all around except telling them like, hey, you need some more development in this area. I hope I answered that second question. Did I answer the second question,
You
Desiree?
did part of it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what people need to feel supported in their journey as a leader. I think this, in the world today, we do an awful job of this. Like
Absolutely.
we just do an awful job. And even as we look for in talent, I was, when we're recruiting, it's a talent show. When we bring it back to recruiting, when we're looking for leaders, right, we're not always assessing from a piece of paper whether they're ready to lead a team. And that is, that is a whole nother batch of like soft skills and competencies and like all the things we don't necessarily look at or put in a job description. And so, I wish we could rewrite what leadership actually means, but that's not the case. So organizations like yours are so great. They're so awesome.
Yeah. And it reminds me of my two favorite quotes that we say on the show. One is access without support is not opportunity. And like
Yes.
anyone trying to sell that gaslight isn't doing anyone in TA any favors.
Yes.
So this idea that I can bring you to the table but not give you a seat or anything else is silly. And then the other one is the skills that it takes to hit a home run are not the same skills that it takes to teach someone how to hit a home run.
Spot on.
And that
Spot on.
it is so often confused. I have a manager right now that it's just like, y'all should have just let them carry the bag. You should have let them stay an elevated IC, let them get whatever title they wanted with that and leave them on their own. And sometimes a lot of people who put people in positions have to learn that the hard way, that these are not the same two skill sets and that they're very, very different. And their communication skills actually will outweigh their specific quota just in some form sometimes. So yeah, you make great points because we actually talk about those quite often.
I think I've told growth in Felicia's organization this before, like not everybody wants to even be a leader, right?
Word.
So true.
And they get forced into these positions and they're like, I don't really even want to be here. So I suck at it. And like, then I just think of all the people you're affecting, whether it's one person, whether it's 5 people, whether it's 25 people. This is like a rolling thing that really disrupts organization. It drives me crazy.
I don't know if you've ever had to report to one of those rolling managers that they tossed in. They suck. But anyway, okay, sorry, keep going, Felicia.
And the truth of the matter is some people don't like people.
Right.
And we're not honest about that. Like every person who is killing quotas don't really want to be bothering people. They want to sit in their corner, do a good job. But to your point, Desiree, they feel compelled. Like, I have to take this position if I want my career to keep moving. So now I got to deal with 15 people that I don't even like. They get on, I don't even want to talk to people. So I'll just come, I'll send them, two letters and not do anything with them until they give me my next assignment because I really don't want to be bothered with people. But if you make me do it, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then they're terrible and you have a disgruntled team. Immediately.
And then you have loss of team members because they're like, I don't want to work for this crazy person.
Yes.
How to you? You know what I mean? Like, if this is who you're going to put in charge.
Correct.
I've got somewhere else to go, even in this job market. people lose.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, who wants to deal with that? It's
no
just
one
insane.
talk about
Yeah.
money. So let's jump into something else. What do you think the biggest lie is that companies tell themselves about inclusion?
Such a great question. So we talked about a minute ago, putting you to the table and then giving you the seat. And then that's enough. If I invite you to the party, I put you at the table with the 10 white men, as long as you're sitting there, that's inclusion. You
That's
don't
an
say a
invite.
word. You don't understand the dynamics. You don't even know what they're talking about at the table. But your mere face and presence includes, and that's the biggest lie, right? Because I
Right.
have no power, I have no influence. Inclusion truly means that you're actually getting my thoughts, my opinion. You're getting a melding of different thoughts and diverse backgrounds that's making the organization better. But the lie is I just bring you in, right? And I have your picture on all of our things for our company. You know, she's the poster child for how we, do inclusion. But you never teach me what it means to deal with the company. You never teach me what it is to be at this table with people who are overlooking me. You just put me there and say, figure it out. It's very damaging because then you have someone who doesn't understand it. They feel out of place, and then everyone gaslights you and say, "Oh, you're doing fine. You're there. That's good enough. We put you there. We gave you a seat. We even let you sit up high in the seat. You're good to go." But we don't give you any tools. We don't listen to you. When you raise your hand, we don't acknowledge you. And it's a pet peeve of mine. It really is.
Well, and I think it's even more frustrating because let's say, okay, so they put that person in the seat, gave them no support. They do good, and it's like, well, that was the expectation, duh. They do bad, and then we're going to blame the whole industry of DEI and shut the thing down and all this other. And so it is a loop of self-fulfilling prophecy of selling this gaslight that we have an opportunity. It is access with no support. It is an invitation without inclusion. And then we're going to wait for you to mess up. We're going to blame it on the whole entire genre. And then if you do good, well, we're going to say, well, that's what you were supposed to do anyway. So thanks for collecting the paycheck that you were deserved. And then they move on. And it is such a kerfuffle of just absolute self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think what's the worst part of it is it's a specific community facilitating this self-fulfilling prophecy and then a different community that's the recipient of not only the gaslight but also this imposter syndrome that comes with it because their journey is not the same. Like it's I don't want to say it's just not, I don't know another way to say, just not set up for success, I think is, I don't know another way to
Absolutely.
say that.
Yeah.
So it's a weird loop that, and again, if you're not paying attention, things are happening to where it's just like, what are y'all doing? This is getting worse. Why
Yes.
would,
Yeah.
yeah. So kind of, yeah. Anyway, that's just me being weird. Sorry to take us on a
No,
loop.
that's the truth though, Ashley. Like we're navigating a system that we wasn't built with us in mind, right?
Correct.
When the system was built, it wasn't built for the first generation graduate student, that graduated from an HBCU and went into sector, right? Like I didn't have the parent who had maybe worked in that sector, understood the dynamics that could teach me. So the person, to your point, the person who's at advantage is my mom or dad or somebody in my family already sat at this table. So they could tell me the 15 things that happens, right? So then that person necessarily already has an advantage. But for us who don't know, or even if you did have a parent, but you just never sat at the table, you don't know what you don't know. And so to your point, then it's like, oh, well, she wasn't prepared. It's a pipeline issue. One gave her the training. Well, you hired her, to your point, to Desiree's point, on the basis of some qualifications that said she was competent, but then you bring her in here and you say, well, she doesn't have it. So is it the chicken or the egg, right?
And
Which one is it?
and it's so interesting to me because, like I said earlier, whenever it comes to management, if your team isn't hitting home runs, I'm judging you as the manager, not your team. And like if you play football and your team isn't scoring, like they get rid of the manager first. They don't pull the whole team. And so I think that's something so interesting about corporate structure and something so interesting specifically whenever different communities are managed by different communities, they very quickly are like, well, we got to take them off the roster. And it's like, whoa, whoa, why are you not being held accountable for all the, home runs that this person is or is not hitting? Because if they were, you'd be taking credit. But now that they're not, you're just going to be like, well, that's on them and blame a whole, like, no way. They've lost the onus in this cycle as well to actually say it was us who gave them the access. It is us who needs to give them the support, or else this is an illusion of an opportunity.
Making excellent points, right? And the one thing that I really want to kind of turn us to now is, because inclusion is one thing, but I had this manager for a very long time. He used to talk to me about potential and fit as words, right? That was his thing, right? Like the two words I can't stand more in the universe, because I think there's bias inside of those words. I mean, wholeheartedly, you could just
There's
tear
a
them
gender
apart.
bias.
Like, I mean, just you could tear them apart and do awful things with them. What words should we be using? What words, as we think about what leaders need to be, what are the words we should be saying to put someone in a leadership role?
That is such a great question. The word that I like, and as we talk, I don't know if this is the appropriate word, is readiness, right? I think to your point, potential can go left or right. Whether I fit depends on how you feel about the other people who are at the table. But am I ready? That means, have I been equipped with what I need to be successful? Less about, my background, but do I understand what, emotional regulation looks like at a table? Do I understand what self awareness is? And so readiness doesn't exclude me. It just means that I need the tools in order to get there.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I'll never get there. It just means, what do I need in order to get ready? So I often say readiness. What are the couple things that we could give her that'll help her to really edge out and to be more successful? So I think readiness for me feels better than, is it a good fit? Because fit changes. If it's hot outside, my feet might swell enough. Maybe it doesn't fit then, but in the
Right.
winter it does, So I don't
I
know.
mean,
But
valid.
readiness feels consistent. It's the power skills that you need just to navigate.
Yeah, and I just, I as I think about the climb and the work that you're doing, that is really what it's about. It's about
It
readiness,
is.
right? Ready
Yes.
for you to be in that seat in order to have those discussions, and ready to be emotionally intelligent, ready to be able to
Yes.
network in a room, be able to do all these pieces
Absolutely.
of the puzzle. That's all about readiness, right?
Yes.
And I think if we talk more in those terms, it'd be so much better at building leaders
Yeah.
instead of what we have, let's just promote you and hope you survive type of mentality. And if you don't, bye bye. It's just such a corporate, horrible way to build people. Oh no, build people as
Absolutely.
leaders.
Absolutely. And that's interesting, because as we've been thinking about what this next year looks like for the climb, we were talking about promotions and the ability to really get our members to the next level. But to your point, our goal really is, how do we give them the things they need to get ready and to survive, to thrive and not just survive in those spaces. Because there's a lot of people just surviving right now and just
Oh,
trying to, like, day by day, I hope they don't fire me, or I hope I don't
right.
say the wrong thing because no one told me. So how do we teach them how to be prepared, how to deal with those? That's so, Desiree, that's why you're an executive champion. You said that so well. I'm gonna take that clip.
Take that clip.
This is what I like about the climate, what I like about organizations like yours, or Ashley speaking about it, me speaking about it. It's the ability to build confidence in yourself that you can sit in those rooms as well,
Absolutely.
right? When you feel ready, you're like, yeah, baby,
Yes.
I got this, Otherwise, you go into the room with a little bit of imposter syndrome. We can call it
Yeah.
whatever you want. I actually hate those two words together, but I
Fair
think it's overused. Let me
Let's
say.
just
But
say self-doubt. We'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
use self-doubt.
Right?
Ooh, I like that.
There you go. You go in with this self-doubt, and then everything you do from then on is built on that self-doubt, whether
Yeah.
it's good or bad, is built on something that already started as a negative. Which I like about readiness is you feel ready, you're going in with
Yeah.
some confidence, and you start from a place of optimism and positivity, right? And I think that changes at the trajectory of your career, your course, your leadership journey, whatever it is. Yeah.
I like it too.
Can I ask, because you were talking about promotions and things like that. So at the beginning of this question, Desiree had used the term potential. I'm going to use this for our talent outside the box, so I'm not going to dive super in deep, but I am curious, when it comes to these ladies seeking promotions, do you give them? Like, what are the tips that you give them? I only ask because I'm curious. There's one that specifically has to do with potential versus performance. I'm going to save it for the end of the podcast now, but I'm curious if that pops up. But yeah, so if we do have some of these folks listening, and they're like, man, I really want to position myself. First, there's the positioning of themselves for the view of readiness, but then also their actual readiness as well. So whenever it comes to the perception and perspective, the outside room that's measuring this individual, what tips do you give to be like, how do you arrive being perceived as ready? How do you come? And so that way they want to see you promoted. They want to see you go. Like, what are those? Are there any action items that we could be
Yeah, it
doing?
is. Yeah, that's a really good question because at this point, it's really less about your ability to produce and it's all about the way you are perceived a lot of times with
Mm-hmm.
promotion at that point, right? So you can be an amazing person at your job if you're a technical SME and all that's fine, but promotion really happens outside of that because there are 5 technical SMEs who can do the job. Okay, cool. But what is Felicia's hallway file? What do people think about her?
Mm,
Is she a person who's easy to work with? Is she a pill? Is she a team player? So I always ask
mm,
people, sometimes you don't even know, we call it what your hallway foul is. Like, what do people think about you? The other piece is for those who are already in the positions that you want to go into or the organizations you want to go into, how many of them are sponsors for you? How many of them think
mm,
highly enough for you that in those rooms where promotion is happening, they're able to speak with you? So now we often speak about sponsorship in like a one, have a sponsor. But I tell people you got to hedge your bets, right? So if
mhm,
I'm trying to get promoted and there's supposed to be 12 people in the room, I need to be in relationship with 6 of those people. And I know that's people like 6, yes, 6. And so tell people you should spend a lot of time understanding who's in your environment, meeting with the people who are in your environment, understanding what's important to them. And then how do you show them that you're already moving and leading in that next level? Because at that level, it's all about perception for the most part.
mm,
Now, when you just join, organization, promotion is a little bit easier. But when you get mid-level manager, senior, it's all about perception and how they perceive you. And so you got to figure out who's in the organization, what they think about you, what's your hallway file, and then continue to just do what you're doing also. Because
mm.
sometimes we get so stuck into the playing the political aspect that then our work begins to fail, right? Because we're
Yeah.
now all just trying to schmooze. And so my thing is to ask them, what has been your position in the organization? Who do you know for sure is going to advocate for what? And then what are some people who may not be your best fans?
This episode of the Talentless podcast is brought to you by Do Better Consulting. Hiring is broken. Job searches are broken. And honestly, most career advice out there is just recycled nonsense. Do Better Consulting exists for people who are done guessing. They work with mid to senior leaders, founders, and talent teams to get clear on their signal, how they show up in the market, how they hire, and how decisions actually get made. No fluff, no templates just to say you have them. Just strategy, structure, and honest feedback that actually works. If you're tired of spinning, it might be time to do better. Head to dobetterconsulting.net.
How can you shore up those relationships? And a lot of this feels icky because it feels very like playing the field and political. But if we're honest, there's so much politics in the workplace.
Well,
So
yeah,
either you're
that's
going to
all it is.
decide that, yep, you're going to decide you're going to play or you're not going to play. But
Right.
if you're looking to be promoted, these are the kind of things that you have to think
Mhm.
about. And so that's typically the advice that I give is looking at all of those aspects of who's around you and who's an ally, who's not, who's going to advocate, and then how do you turn that around if you do have a bad hallway file?
I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about this a lot in general about relationship building and art's not a skill every single person has. And especially if that person already has an immediate dislike for you, how do you turn that around? That's a skill set.
It
Right.
is.
It's a real skill set and it takes work and it takes time to develop that skill set. But if nobody tells you you need to have it, then you'll
You
just
don't
never
know.
build on that skill set, right? You don't
Yeah.
know that you have to do that. So you stay with the little clique that you have at work and you like hang out with your friends and nothing ever happens for you really because you
Correct.
haven't gone outside of that circle. And it's not comfortable for everybody.
It's
You
not.
know, it's not at all. When I talk about networking and being in a room these are uncomfortable moments for people mostly. Nobody wants to go up and just start a conversation with a random person, right? Not walks up and up. But most
Except
people
you,
do
yes.
not.
Yeah, no, Des will. She'll put you to shame.
Desiree.
Me to shame personally.
But it doesn't even matter, right? Like, but to most people, that is not a comfortable position for them.
Yeah.
But unless they realize that they need to do those things and how to do it effectively and not waste their time, make themselves feel more comfortable. I think this is a skill set we don't teach people. And I'm glad the climb does that because I've seen so many people so bad at it, right? And they ruin their trajectory in a organization. They,
Yeah.
get demoted or their career goes off the rails because they don't have that one thing. They could have everything else, but they don't know how to build relationships inside of the workplace. And so it's
Yeah.
very interesting to me, the psychology behind all of that. And it sucks that there's so much politics in the workplace.
It is. It does
It-
suck. It sucks so bad.
But
It all honestly, it sucks for capitalism because I can't tell you
Yeah.
how many
Yeah.
dollars we would save if y'all just focused on what we need to do so we could
Yeah.
go home.
Yep.
Like, if I had $1 for every time I was like, I could save this company $1 million by just us cleaning this up. Yeah, that's rough, man.
It
It's a
is.
rough
you were
time.
talking a little bit, you got into a little bit about mentors and sponsors I don't want to treat our audience like they don't know what they're talking about, but I think we should go into that a little bit, right? About what a sponsor really looks like. And I would love to hear what you define that as.
Yes. So for me, sponsorship is very specific. It is someone who is willing to speak up for you and advocate for you when you're not in the room. And the challenging thing about a sponsor is unless you have built a relationship with that person and you know them well, you don't know whether or not they're going to do that in a room or not. So
Mhm.
often my best sponsors were first mentors who had, advised me, or old supervisors who I had worked with, climbed their own ladder. And because they knew my potential and because they had worked with me, they knew what I could provide to the organization, they became sponsors. So I always also tell people, if you're looking for a sponsor, they're probably your mentors that are continuing to move in the organization. And then a person who has worked with you who kind of understands what you can provide. But that's really for me what sponsorship is. And there are lots of thoughts about, well, then how do you get one? Well, what do you do? And I don't think it's something as forward as saying, hey, will you be my sponsor? Although I have done that before, let me tell you. It has worked and you can do it. Some people don't advise it, but I do it. I'll say, listen, are you going to advocate for me when we get to this table? Just say yes or no. If the answer is no, just tell me no and tell me why. I can move on. I'm a big girl. Now, most people don't say do that, but you can, right? But I think the best start is to get mentors, like Desiree say, build relationships, go and talk to them, get their advice, actually take their advice, let them see you put that into play, let them see you in your natural environment working, and then that person can move to be your sponsors. And sometimes it's not easy to understand or recognize who a sponsor is. Sometimes you don't even know until years later. Well, until years later, I knew a sponsor was my sponsor, right? Because someone was like, yeah, he was in there advocating hard for you. I didn't know that, but we had built this relationship where he was going to do it for me regardless because that's the relationship we built. And so that's always my advice. Find really good mentors whose son can matriculate with you. And then as y'all build that relationship, that person naturally wants to advocate for you if they're a good person.
Can I ask now, and you can answer this however you want. I have my opinion on it because I did hear at some point, not in this specific part, but earlier, the term ally. I have weird qualms with that term, but is that a term? What's Felicia's thought whenever we hear that word?
Yeah, that word gives me a little bit of the icks only because, and I probably in that moment actually didn't even use it in its proper context because an ally is different for me than a sponsor. Now, a sponsor can be an ally, right? But when I think of ally, I think of somebody who is not just looking to promote me, but they're promoting more than just me. They're promoting that a woman that even looks like me, that has the potential like me, I want to want to lift and help those types of women climb. I'm an ally for that group of people, whether it's people of color or it's Black women or whatever the thing is. That's more of an ally than just, hey, I like Felicia, and because, maybe she's a safe bet, I'm going to sponsor her. So I see allies being something larger than a person, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, so in my head, and I think you were right, I was thinking it in the aspect of how we're talking about the community that is the recipient of all of these different things, and then we have the community that's putting all of these things into motion. And I often find that the community putting these things into motion like to self-declare that they are allies, when in reality, because it is a self-declared sport, they are actually creating tremendous turmoil for these communities because they're speaking on behalf of. They don't actually have allyship. They have speakermanship. And they don't actually ask the community. They're not actually involved with that community, bringing them to the table, gathering their opinions, making sure that they have not only access to be spoken for, but that they actually get to pipe up as well. And so I, as just a person, always have a weird instance with the term ally, just because any self-appointed social ship, I'm like, okay, let's hold on.
Yeah.
But then also, secondly, I see a lot of people use that terminology as a way to say, but no, I'm helping, I'm doing, I'm XYZing. And it's like, again, you're speaking on behalf of, you do what you think is best in your own head. You've never been in these community. Like, it's just something to where I know I'm probably an oddball, but I didn't know if other people felt about that term also how I do.
Yeah.
So sorry, not to be a weirdo, but because I see the misuse of it, and then I still see the self-proclamation, and then the pat on the back of like, look at what I've done, and it's like, you just made a dumpster fire, homie, but you gave yourself a cool title, like. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking now because again, I'll
No,
go on for
I
ages.
completely understand what you're saying. I think the people who I've seen be the best allies never said they were.
Heard,
That they
agreed.
didn't need to be self-declared in order to do the work. And I know I'm surrounded by one of my dear mentors who is an ally, who's not just advocating for me, he's actively searching, but he doesn't say it out loud. No one has to know, but I call people oftentimes people's life work of leaving it better, of really searching for those who can make a table more diverse, who actually are looking to give that person influence in that organization. They don't have to say it out loud to the table to make, to your point, or speak on behalf of anybody. They're actually having the conversations with those people, positioning them in the right places, thinking about how they can help to move them forward, and not just one person. But yeah, I've never had, well, I have, but people who often say that they are an ally often are not, because because your actions always speak louder than your words.
It's hard to hear what they say when you see what they do.
I think they destroyed that word for me a long time ago. Like, I'm like, stop using that word. You don't even know what it means.
Yeah.
No.
I never say it. I don't think I've ever said it in our whole lives, knowing each other, Des. But anytime I even hear people be like, I'm an ally, I'm like, okay, again, self-appointed. Like, you're a self-appointed mayor right now of this puddle. Like, what? Like, none of this is real. Like, you just made all this up.
We're going to ban that word from the Talentless podcast.
Yeah,
so this is the last time we're going to say it.
It was the first and the last, actually. So all in one episode, we got the full scoop.
All in one episode, it came and it went.
Felicia, I'm going to go back because we were just talking about it struck me, and I know I've heard this from you before, but you said some of your earliest mentors were white men, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Till this day, actually.
To this day. And so that's interesting to me. One of my best mentors is also a white man. He's fantastic. But I'm interested to hear what they were able to give you versus what you thought maybe you were missing from them.
That's a great question, Desiree. No one's ever asked me that. I'm excited about that question. Okay. So I think what my white male mentors have been able to give me is an understanding of how to navigate the system that I have no background in. One of my greatest mentors is when I was actually at the table, and there's just so much nuance at the table. There's so much verbal, nonverbal going on. And, his ability to, after a meeting, sit down with me and let me ask questions. Like, what did that mean? Or did I read this right? Like, the ability to have someone help me to navigate that, my white mentors have been amazing at. What I wanted from a Black woman mentor is, am I being gaslit? Hey, what is this microaggression? How do I deal with this microaggression? How do I decide when to address things and when not to address them? When is it important? Because if I fight every battle, I'd be fighting all the time, and that's not going to be a good use of my time. This sounds bad, but it's the truth. How do I present myself as safe in some ways? Because oftentimes, you can be presented as the angry Black woman, or you can come off a certain way. And so for me, going in, I just didn't understand some of that context. And so I really wanted someone to talk me through that, like what it really means. And then you often get the fatigue from being the only in the room, and then being able to talk to someone like, man, today was exhausting because I was just in this room with nobody that looked like me, and I made this comment or made this colloquialism that nobody understood, and that felt lonely. You know what I mean? So some of those things, that just having somebody who's walked in those shoes as a Black woman and had to navigate it, I yearned for that. I yearned for someone to tell me what it looked like when I was dealing with microaggressions, and how to really handle that in an appropriate manner that wasn't going to land. Because my thing is always, I want to give a message in a way that's going to land with the audience.
Right.
I don't want to just say something and then because of my delivery, it goes in the void. I want you to hear me clearly and understand what I say clearly. So people have done that well. I want to talk to someone who's done that well. So yeah, that's what the nuance was. My white, they have taught me all about the institution and how it works.
They're the best ones to do it.
They
Yes.
can teach you all the things. Also, if it's okay, I
Yeah.
want to call out one thing. So, to the people listening audibly, what she said I think is super duper important, but as also the recipients. So, she's seeking mentorship. So, she can feel the comfortability, but like she shouldn't have to seek that. Like, she shouldn't have to change herself to be received in the right way. So, I do want to just call like pink flag to that. Like, that's an opportunity for us in this room. That's an
I love that,
opportunity for the
Ashley.
people at the table to say, are we allowing her to become 100% in as herself? Are we allowing her a safe space for her to be herself? Are we a right environment for everyone in the room to come with all of their ideas and clarity and be heard? And I can tell you right now, based on 99.9% of the boardrooms I've been in, the answer is no. But if you are listening, the whole purpose of this is to do better, be better. And so if we know that's happening, just next time you're in the room, make it a point to make sure that anyone in the room that is with you feels safe, feels heard, and all of these things, because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't happen unless it's by design. And so I don't know. I think that's the other side of the coin, is like, I get the seeking mentorship, that'll happen, obviously, blah, blah, blah. But I think the room needs to, I think the room needs challenged. I think the room needs to
Absolutely.
change, because if we really want to be inclusive of diverse perspectives, backgrounds, everything like that, then the room needs to be ready for that. And I hate how much onus and effort other individuals, communities have to put on themselves to just get to a certain point so they can get in a room for other people to not have prepared that room for them at all, and then push the onus back. So anyways, I don't want to distract
Well
from what you're saying,
said.
because what you're saying
No,
is
well
perfect.
said. No, well
But
said. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we need to match the energy. Like, it shouldn't just all be on one by any means. Like, the room needs to change. The room needs an
Yeah.
update.
Yeah. Well
Absolutely.
said. That's well said.
Audience, this is the part of the podcast where we do talent outside of the box. This is the
Ooh!
psychological or cognitive side of the topic we've been talking about. Ashley, let's go.
So I did not prepare for this at all. It was only mentioned just because someone said the term potential, and I'm so excited. Okay, so researchers have been able to show that promotions can happen based off of potential or performance, and that those typically coincide with genders. So whenever they were doing research on managers seeking to get promotions for their employees, they found that whenever the employee was male, they would use more promising terms such as potential, they have the aptitude, we believe that they can do. It was a whole bunch of future fiction terminology. Versus whenever the employee was a female, it was she has performed, she has done. It was very much past tense. And so, what the research was showing us is that for men, they can actually get much more promoted based off of potential, versus women have to already have that historical performance. So, the reason me asking, I was like, hey, do you do this Like, do you know? What I was asking really about was a lot of times for women, specifically whenever I'm doing career workshops, I actually make them provide their data points of excellence, their hard data, their proof points of what they've already done, because we know when the audience, or sorry, when the one that we're measuring is a female, there is more onus on her to have to illustrate her proven performance points versus men can kind of skate by a little bit more based off of potential. Some of this could be because of the amount of potential sponsors that they may have in the room. They may have enough people speaking on behalf of them that they can only talk about potential, and that gets them passed. So if you're a lady and you're looking for a promotion, have those performance data points in your pocket and be able to speak to already anything that you can that is on that job description with those qualifications. And if you're a male, you pretty much just get to sit back and do whatever you want because that's patriarchy. Okay, that's talent outside the box. And that's
I
that.
love it. I love it so much. All right.
Yeah.
I love it.
You two, we had a Dum Dum of the Week story submitted, and it actually works for this topic. So I'm going to read it to you. All right.
All
So
right.
picture this. This is how it was written to us.
This is how it was written to us.
I
Oh,
love
stop.
it. Sicily, 19.
Yeah.
My company announced a big internal push for diverse leadership pipelines. New panels, new posts. Everybody's excited. It's all over our intranet. There's a high-performing manager, a woman of color, crushing her numbers, mentoring half the org for free, and she applies for a director role. If you have a guess, that's me. She gets feedback that she's not quite ready yet. Cool. So she asks, what do I need to work on? And they tell her executive presence, visibility, and strategic influence. No examples, no help, just vibes. Fast forward 6 months, the role gets filled by an external hire who has the exact same years of experience, zero internal context, and a resume written in font that screams consultant. And when I asked why, the leadership said, we just didn't feel like you were ready for the next level. Very sad story, but it happens every day, kids. Happens every day. And this is what we've been talking about, the readiness loop, right? And this is what organizations like The Climb do. Felicia, this has been a joy and a pleasure. We want to make sure people can look at The Climb, research it, get in contact with you. Please do what Ashley calls the plug party on yourself. So go for it.
Yay! I want to plug The Climb. You're going to go to the-climb.org. Again, the work that we are doing is all about readiness and making sure that you are positioned well for your next position. So we know that most women of color already have all of the certifications, all the things, all the book knowledge, but then how do we teach you the readiness, the power skills, how to navigate those political landscapes, what I'm calling in 26 the institutions. I mean, so if you're in a place in your career where you're trying to figure out like the dumb email, that's an institution thing. How do I navigate that institution? And The Climb is for you. And so you go to the-climb.org. Our membership currently is free. And in that membership, you get access to all of our events. In addition to, we have leadership programs, one right now for individual contributors and new managers. But in the fall, we're launching one for mid-managers also. And then the next year, one for senior leaders. And we're not just teaching basic leadership. What we're teaching are just that. How do you navigate these systems? What are the things that nobody talks about? Like, you need executive presidents. What do they really mean when they say that? And what do you really need in order for someone not to say you don't need executive presence? Because it really does mean something. They didn't tell you what it did, but it really does mean something. So we break down those things in our leadership programs. So if you're missing that, please join us. Our social media platforms are the same on Instagram at Join the Climb, LinkedIn at Join the Climb, and me, myself on LinkedIn is Felicia Smith. Please follow us. And that is all about The Climb.
Well, that's the end of our conversation. Remember, this wasn't just about leadership and titles. This was about power, access, sponsorship, all the things. I hope you enjoyed this one. You know what to do. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Blue Sky. So many places to follow us at. And if you have a dumb story like the one you heard today, go ahead and email me at Desiree at talentlesspodcast.com. Submit it on our website at talentlesspodcast.com. And grab some merch while you're there. I mean, who doesn't want to rock a talentless trucker hat? I mean, come on now. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye. Yay.